Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Paranormal News. Today's article comes from clicktohouston.com, and the headline is Did You Know the Houston Zoo has its own resident ghost? It's written by Brianna Zamora Nipper, Community Associate Producer, and it was published on October 10th, 2020, and then it was updated again on Halloween 2020. The Houston Zoo opened in Herman Park in the 1920s and acquired its first ghost just 2 decades later. The adventurous German-born lion tamer Hans Nagel was the institution's first zookeeper. During his tenure, Nagel, a media darling whose wild antics were fodder for local newspapers, would become a well-known figure about the town. He met his untimely end in 1941 when he was shot and killed in Herman Park under strange circumstances. Some say his spirit still roams the park grounds. Nagel's life before the zoo is something of an unknown. He was of Dutch ancestry and born in Germany, although he allegedly reported to immigration authorities in 1932 that he was born in Tobin, Texas. According to the Houston Public Library's archives, while abroad, Nagel trained at the Hagenbeck Animal Company. Nagel joined the zoo as its first zookeeper in 1922, as the city of Houston was moving its animals from Sam Houston Park to a larger space in Herman Park, according to Barry Scardino Bradley's Houston's Herman Park, A Century of Community. Sounds like a page turner. By 1925, Nagel had acquired hundreds of animals for the zoo, including the Asian elephants Nellie and Hans, the latter of which he named after himself, according to Barry Scardino Bradley's Houston Herman Park, A Century of Community. Nagel trained many of the zoo animals in a circus-like setting and often held show for zoo visitors. I guess that's supposed to be held shows? I don't know. He was also known to saddle and ride zebras in and around the park. And here's a photograph of Hans Nagel riding a zebra with a saddle on it. Very cool. You gotta love that. I love the weirdness of this dude. If I saw somebody riding a zebra around like a horse, I would be into it. I would be like, this dude is awesome. The eclectic zookeeper's stunts made headlines more than once. Reportedly, when he witnessed prowlers breaking into the zoo late one night, he chased them while firing shots into the air and intercepting any further progress they would have made into the zoo grounds, according to the Houston Public Library's archives. In 1926, the city of Houston awarded Nagel for his heroism after the seemingly fearless zookeeper rescued a visitor from Houston's then famous Bengal tiger, El Tex. El Tex had lunged at the visitor, a North Dakotan named Bert Wilson, who had foolishly entered the tiger's enclosure whilst carrying a trained rat in his pocket, and Nagel jumped into action. Hold on a minute. I'll finish that in a second. This is very cool and very weird, man. So this is 1926, okay? Now, you know what you see on the news all the time. Some idiot jumps in to the tiger cage or something like that, or the bear cage, or falls in, and the bear or tiger mauls the person, sometimes kills them, sometimes just drags them around, banging them against stuff. And usually the animal ends up getting killed to save the person or to get the body out, which I think is wrong because the idiot jumped in there. What the hell did he expect was going to happen, right? Now, I thought, and this is me being naive, I guess, but I thought that was a modern phenomenon. I thought that only modern man and woman could be dumb enough to jump into damn enclosure with a wild animal like that. But apparently, it's something that's happened for a long time because this is 1926. But that's not even the weirdest part of this. The reason I stopped is because of the description here. El Tex lunged at the visitor, a North Dakotan named Bert Wilson. So this dude named Bert Wilson from North Dakota jumped into the tiger enclosure. Once again, strange, dumb, right? But not the weirdest part of this story. Not only did he jump into the tiger enclosure, but he did so while carrying a rat in his pocket. But once again, not even the strangest part of the story, because it was not an ordinary rat. It was a trained rat. Now, I don't know what this rat was trained to do. Maybe it'll tell us later on in the article. But I definitely don't know what the hell a trained rat would do against a tiger. What good does that do you to have a trained rat when you jump into a tiger enclosure? Is the rat trained to like tap dance and distract the tiger so you can get away? I don't understand what is going on here. This is a very weird story. But I'm digging it. I'm really into it. So let's continue. Let's start back at L-Tex. L-Tex had lunged at the visitor, a North Dakotan named Bert Wilson, who had foolishly entered the tiger's enclosure while carrying a trained rat in his pocket. And Nagel jumped into action, fatally shooting the animal and saving Wilson's life, according to the Texas Archive of the Moving Image. Once again, that's sad. They had to kill the tiger to save this idiot who jumped into the damn enclosure with a trained rat in his pocket. This guy's obviously nuts, right? There's something wrong with Bert Wilson. This dude is either dumb or mentally challenged or crazy or something. There's something wrong with the dude, because you don't jump into a tiger enclosure at all. But you definitely don't do so carrying a trained rat in your pocket thinking that's going to help you. So it sucks that they had to kill a perfectly good tiger over that dummy. They should have just let the tiger eat him. But we carry on. In another show of heroism, Nagel once administered critical first aid to a biology student from Sam Houston State College who had been extracting venom from poisonous snakes when he inadvertently pricked himself with his own hypodermic needle and began exhibiting symptoms, according to the Houston Public Library archives. Nagel's audaciousness is evident in the stories that survive him, including the somewhat murky tale of his untimely passing. Nagel died under curious circumstances in a shooting incident labeled a jurisdictional dispute. According to Barry Scardino Bradley's Houston's Herman Park, A Century of Community, that's like the third or fourth time I've mentioned that book. In the evening of November 17, 1941, Nagel was patrolling the area near the zoo, as he was wont to do from time to time, his German Luger pistol holstered at his side, when he noticed teenagers in a parked car idling in a dirt road in Herman Park. Nagel hid behind a hedge and continued observing the teenagers, when police officer Harold M. Warren came upon the scene and ultimately confronted Nagel. Warren exited his patrol car and asked Nagel if he wanted to return with him to the station so the pair could discuss whose business it was policing the park. When Warren reached to handcuff Nagel, the zookeeper pulled back and attempted to draw his gun, but the officer drew first and shot Nagel 6 times, killing him. Charged with the shooting death of the famed zookeeper, the officer was ultimately acquitted by a grand jury on the grounds of self-defense. Nagel's restless spirit supposedly patrols Herman Park to this day. By some accounts, he often frequents the Houston Zoo's commissary, where over the years zoo employees have observed strange phenomena, including a shadowy figure and a disembodied voice. And that is the end of this article. So, a couple things. Nagel was awesome. I mean, the dude rode around zebras and saved stupid people from tigers and did all kinds of crazy stuff. I really like that we get a backstory of Nagel. So not only do we find out that the Houston Zoo has a ghost, right? But we get a whole colorful, wonderful backstory about this ghost. Very awesome. You usually don't see this kind of thing. But I would be remiss if I did not mention something that I noticed in this article. I think Nagel potentially could have been a pervert. He's some kind of weirdo. Because he was patrolling the zoo, right? Or the area near the zoo, with a pistol on his side. He sees some teenagers in a parked car that is idling in a dirt road in Herman Park. Now, they're not riding by, they're sitting there with the car running, right? So I'll give you 3 guesses what those teenagers were doing in that car. and the first two don't count. It's not very difficult to figure out why two teenagers would be idling in a dirt road, right? So does Nagel walk up and tap on the window and say, "Hey, excuse me, but you can't do that here. Y'all got to get out of here"? No, he doesn't do anything like that. Nagel goes over and hides in the bushes and watches what they're doing in that car until the cops show up and want to take him down to the station. Now, they say they wanted to take him down to the station so they could discuss whether it was his business to police the park or the police business to police the park. But I think there's more to it than that. I think they caught old Nagel peeping on these teenagers. He was watching them do their business in the car. And he was probably enjoying himself while he was doing it. That is my theory. So the cops rolls up and catches Nagel doing what Nagel's doing, playing with his trained rat that he has in his pocket. And they go to arrest him, and Nagel realizes that if everyone finds out that he's hiding in the bushes and watching teenagers make out in a car while playing with his trained rat, that's going to ruin his reputation. And he's this famous zookeeper, so maybe he's not thinking clearly, and he pulls his pistol on the cop in a moment of desperation. The cop shoots him dead. That's my opinion on what probably happened. That's my theory. But I love the backstory of Nagel. Very, very cool. So let me know down in the comments what you think. This article was amazing. I loved it. It had a great backstory for the ghost. We find out there's a ghost. We find out not only is there a ghost, but it's this crazy dude named Nagel. Very, very interesting. So let me know what you think. But this thing had it all. I mean, it really had it all. So thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I will catch you on the next episode. Until I speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do I. Bye-bye. Trained rat.